What's up, everyone, and welcome back to the Jets franchise in Madden 18. And today we're going to be going over what things look like at the quarter point of the season. We're going to do one of these after every 4 games, not every 4 weeks, but after every 4 games. So we just finished playing 4 games. We're going to do one after 8 games. We're going to do one, so on and so forth. You guys should get the gist of this at this point. So just to show you guys what I mean. So we just played 4 games. I know I already explained this, but we played 4 games. After our game against the Falcons, I'll be recording another one of these videos, and then at the bye week I might make a video, but more than likely after the Chiefs game I'll make a video, and then at the end of the season I will obviously make a video because that'll be the end of the season recap and preview of the off season. But it kind of doing it this way after every 4 games kind of eliminates the need for a bye week recap sort of thing, because the bye week, as you see here, is week 11. And some years it might be week 4, some years it might be week 11, some years it might be week 8. It's never a consistent time. It can change. It can be whatever week between like week 4 and week 13, the week after Thanksgiving, it wants to be. So I don't want to be put in a situation where I'm making a bye week video, but it's like only 4 games. So just doing it after every 4 games in general and doing 4 times a season, I think is pretty good idea. There's 3 times a season plus the end of the season. I think that works out very well. So take a look at the Jets' first 4 games. Very winnable. All these games have been very winnable, and the reason is the defense has been playing so good. They gave up 30 points in this game, but I believe there's a pick 6 in there. Great performance against the Bills with several interceptions. Tyrod Taylor, he played well for most of the game, but we were able to force turnovers, which I think is a good trade-off. You can there's 2 arguments to building a great defense. One that forces turnovers, or great defensive performance, I should say. One where you get a lot of turnovers, and one where you just play really well. We've had some of those where you just play really well. We've had a couple where we force a lot of turnovers. This Jaguars game shouldn't have been as close as it was, but our defense really kept us in it. Our offense played poorly for most of the game. We ended up with over 300 yards, but a lot of that was inflated by the Ardarius Stewart touchdown. The defense just only gave up 280 yards. If it hadn't been for penalties, this really would have been a very winnable game, as the Jets gave up 127 penalty yards on the afternoon, although Jacksonville gave up 47 as well, and that hurt their offense a lot of the time, I believe, because most of that was false starts and a couple holding calls. So they benefit. It wasn't as big of a penalty advantage as I actually thought, but still not a great performance. So outlook going forward, you got Browns, Patriots, Dolphins, Falcons. It would be nice to go 2-2, beat the Browns and the Dolphins. However, those are both road games. I don't see a situation where the Jets will beat the Patriots, but they are at home, so that works in their advantage. And against the Falcons might still be reeling from their Super Bowl loss. I haven't taken a look at the standings yet, so we'll see where everything is at. But after that, there's really only one winnable game on the schedule the rest of the way, and that's Thursday night against the Bills in Week 9. So we'll see how that turns out, because just look at this stretch after the bye week. Panthers, Chiefs, Broncos, Saints, Chargers, and Patriots. That is just 6 killer games. Even the Broncos, I would say, is a killer game, just because the defense is going to play up to a high level, at least against our offense just isn't the greatest, just because of the quarterback situation. And quarterback's really holding us back, and he's going to struggle against that group of corners that Denver has. Just look at the way that our passing game functioned this week against a group of 2 really good corners. A group of 3 really good corners, that's just going to be a nightmare to get through. But that's just about the only 2 winnable games left on the schedule. Even the rest, I don't envision the Jets winning. The offense is just going to take over for the other team. Even if the defense for the Jets plays well, it's just not going to work out. I don't think. That's my opinion, though. Take a look at the stats for the New York Jets really quick before we jump into the standings and see what the team is looking to be strong in so far this season. As Josh McCown, 921 passing yards, 4 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, a lot of poorly timed turnovers, just not the greatest. Outside of that, he's actually had a pretty solid year, I think. He's completing 59% of his passes, averaging 7.7 yards an attempt, throwing the ball down the field, getting sacked a lot. That's just because of the offensive line. And overall, I'd say he's been performing pretty solid. These 2 played okay, I think, in the last game. Hackenberg had that turnover, but that was just a poor throw. I think that there's a lot of ways to go for both of these guys, but Petty is definitely the more NFL ready, which would make sense because he has playing experience at the NFL level from 2016, where he actually had a win, I believe, but threw 7 interceptions as well. So he has NFL experience, but that doesn't make him a good quarterback still. But out of these 2, he did look a lot better than Hackenberg, I will say. And Hackenberg did sustain an injury. However, he was fine. I just felt like we didn't need to throw him back in there and save him for a showcase later on down the line. So, quarterbacks, mediocre. Bryce Petty showed something last game. We'll see if he gets an opportunity going forward, as the Jets still have not decided on a starting quarterback for Cleveland. Rushing-wise, Matt Forte is leading the team with only 137 yards rushing. That's 34 yards a game. And if you take a look at the top two backs, it's only about a 55-yard, it's about a 55-yard a game effort. This is 34 and 29, so that's 62 yards a game, sorry. So 60 or 63. Well, say 30. Say 30 for Bilal Powell, because Forte's averaging over 34 and Powell's averaging almost 30, just under. So that's like a 60-yard a game pace, and that's just not good, not very productive. Bilal Powell's really struggled this year. And Matt Forte has been good. He's had a big run, which really inflated his totals, but he's also missed a game. And I think he's been okay overall. I just think the line has not played very good, and that's to be expected. It's not a very good run-blocking line, and there's not very many good run-blocking lines in the NFL in general, so it's not very much of a surprise to see. Receiving-wise, it's been a pretty good year for the Jets wide receivers, actually. Darius Stewart's averaging 89 yards a game. Now, a lot of that is because he caught a 76-yard touchdown pass, but still averaging 15.5 yards a catch, counting that. Austin Seferian-Jenkins having a really good year, averaging 15.2 yards a catch as well, with 2 touchdowns, second on the team. These two are the only guys to score receiving touchdowns so far through 4 games. Is very strange. Robbie Anderson, 14.5 yards per catch, trying to get him involved downfield, but it's a little bit more difficult given the quarterbacks on the roster. Doesn't have a touchdown yet, but he's averaging 58 yards a game, which is really solid in my opinion. Pretty good for a second-year receiver. Jordan Leggett averaging 11.2 yards a catch. He's getting involved pretty heavily, like more than I expected. I didn't think that he'd be getting 28 yards a game. I figured he'd be getting a little bit more passed over, but we'll see how the offense evolves over the season, because I think that we'll see a lot more of these 2 tight end sets as the year goes on, because Jordan Leggett is a very good receiver, as we've already seen. He does have a couple issues here and there with drops and various things and not being able to hold on the ball in traffic, but he is a rookie, and he was a 4th round pick, so I believe a 4th or 5th round pick. I want to say 4th though. 4th round pick. And this is a strange hodgepodge group of receivers, because Darius Stewart was a 3rd round pick. Robbie Anderson was an undrafted free agent last year. Seferian-Jenkins was a 2nd round pick 3 years ago, but he's gone through so much since then. Jordan Leggett was a 4th round pick, so the core of this receiving core, if we go forward with this group of 4 guys, plus whoever we have filling in, Marquez Wilson or various different people, is a strange mix of how to build the receiving core. Marquez Wilson I've actually liked so far this year, though, when he's gotten the ball. He hasn't gotten a lot of looks just because the Jets have been looking less at the slot and more at the outsides. I don't know if there's a specific reason for that, but we'll see how the season goes on. And Marquez Wilson is, I believe, close to returning from his injury. I think he only has 2 more weeks left. He's missed 2 up to this point, but 36 yards a game. Yeah, that could be solid. He's definitely the 5th target in the offense, but I think that this would be a good core if we had a better quarterback. Kimbrel Tompkins, 2 catches for 32 yards. Playing a lot on special teams, though, and he's been pretty solid. Matt Forte, not as involved in the pass game as I would like to see, and the same goes for Bilal Powell. Not really getting the backs involved a whole lot in the receiving game, as they're only averaging 11 yards a game in the air combined. And Chad Hansen is at 1 catch for 3 yards. That was pretty, I think, game in garbage time in game 2, I want to say, or late in game 2 against the Dolphins, I want to say, after Marquez Wilson went down. So we'll move on from receiving, and we'll look at blocking. And Brian Winters and James Carpenter are yet to allow a sack. Now, I know these numbers aren't exactly accurate, but let's just put that in comparison. Brandon Shell's allowed 4. Wesley Johnson's allowed 2. Beacham's allowed 2. I think that this is an off stat, but it definitely shows who I think has been playing weak in pass protection and who's been playing good. Brandon Shell has been playing weak in pass protection. So is Johnson. Beacham, I feel, has been okay, not great. I think that the impact blocking being a little bit higher makes up for the fact that his pass and run is so low. But he's a guy who, just if you take a look at all the stats that I usually like out of offensive linemen, he doesn't have great strength. It's okay, but really not very good. His pass and run block are poor, and his impact blocking is also not very good. His awareness is good, which is fine, but he's, I would say, a replacement level player at this point, and probably not somebody that we're going to have on the offensive line going forward. He's a position, and especially at the most important position, somebody that we would look to replace down the line. But overall, I don't think the offensive lines perform very good, and I would look at that as the second or third priority, depending on how you feel about the Jets' corners this season going forward. Defensively, Darren Lee is leading the team in tackles with 49, 4 for a loss, 2 interceptions on the season, and he has been the most improved player, I would say, on the team. Jamal Adams, I would say, has been our defensive MVP, but Darren Lee has been the person I'm impressed with the most because I expected him to be a little bit not as far along. The big thing about him is he doesn't have linebacker size, and that's why people think he struggled last season. He doesn't have the greatest stats in the game even, but I think that he's played really well, even in pass coverage, even though he only has a 57 zone coverage. And by the way, I should lay out the groundwork for player progression. I have been doing player progression throughout the season, but I'm only upgrading awareness until awareness gets to, I believe, like 80. That was something that somebody in Operation Sports said. That's how the computer apparently upgrades their players, is they always go for awareness first. So we're going to be doing awareness up to a certain point, and then we'll work on the tertiary skills after that. So Darren Lee, I would say we're probably going to work on like block shedding, and then probably zone coverage, maybe zone coverage even before that, because I think it's more important to have linebackers good against the pass than good against the run now, just because our defensive line is really good still with Muhammad Wilkerson and Sheldon Richardson and all those guys up front. So there is that to take into account as well. But Darren Lee, my personal most improved player from year 1 to year 2, or at least in this season in general. Demario Davis has been really good in his return. I've been using him as a blitzer a lot too, and he has been getting the job done. He actually has 3 sacks from the middle linebacker position, 33 tackles, 5 for a loss. Been pretty satisfied, but again, not hurt somebody that I really see in the Jets' future plans. We might end up holding on to him as depth though down the line, and until we can get a better player at that other middle linebacker spot in this defense, or eventually down the line in another general linebacker spot, because I plan on switching to a 4-3 at some point during this series. Jamal Adams has been, in my opinion, the defensive MVP. He's been making a ton of plays in the backfield, through in the secondary, and he's been making plays, getting interceptions that way too. That wasn't really a sentence, but you get my point. I think he's been the best player on our defense. Even though Darren Lee's got more tackles, I think that Jamal Adams has been a better playmaker. Muhammad Wilkerson's got 19 tackles, 5.5 sacks. Looking to bounce back from last year. I actually think he already has more sacks than he did last season. As, yes, he only had 4.5 sacks last season. He has 5.5 already this year. So, very good out of him. Very impressive. Marcus May, I've actually liked how he's played. He's been another guy who's just around the ball a lot, just like Jamal Adams, and he's been very good so far this season. Sheldon Richardson, 18 tackles, 2.5 sacks, 5 tackles for a loss. Very good season out of him. Leonard Williams, not quite the sack total, but Leonard Williams, I feel, has still been our best defensive lineman in terms of pushing the pocket, shedding blocks, stopping the run. He's been our best all-around defensive lineman, even if he's not getting the sack totals that Wilkerson's getting. But I still really like those two in the middle, and I would look to get rid of Sheldon Richardson down the line, even though I have him listed as a right end right now, by the way, because I feel that he's going to draw a little bit more trade interest if the way Madden's trade system works. Like, he had decent ratings at left outside linebacker, but I wanted to see like what we could kind of get for him if we shopped him around as a interior guy, just because that is where he would play on another team. So if you get the point of that, and he's already been traded in real life. However, I feel that we could do a lot better within this series, and he was already on the roster when I started the series. So there's that. Morris Claiborne, I think he's been pretty good. He's been breaking up passes, three pass breakups he's been credited with, but he's just been really good in coverage. Like, not like amazing, but he's been solid. Buster Screen, I think, hasn't been very good. Jordan Jenkins had that sack and a half in the last game that he played. I think he's injured now, though. He is not, actually. So he must have like left the game, because I remember like Cody Lemonnier and Josh Martin were getting a lot of playing time last game, and it wasn't just because of subs. So decent first game out of Jordan Jenkins. I haven't seen a whole lot of him this year, and he's more of a traditional 4-3 down lineman, like defensive end, than he is outside linebacker. So He fits actually what we want to do going forward, although he does have decent zone coverage still, and he has okay enough speed that he could get the job done. But I want to see what he looks like when you put him on a line in a 4-3 and just let him go. He's still very young, has time to improve, although he is already 23. Marcus Williams, as usual, I should be expected decent in zone. Doesn't really do a whole lot else. Rontez Miles, for being slow as he is, he only has 85 speed at safety, which is okay, but not the greatest. He's been doing okay. He's not really a great player, but whenever he's in as our third safety, he's fine. Caleb Brantley, he's been good when he's been able to play, but unfortunately he just commits too many penalties to keep him out there on the field consistently other than as a sub. Mike Pennell, not getting a whole lot of playing time, but been okay when he does. Bruce Carter, the same case. Josh Martin, we saw the first little glimpse of Josh Martin last week, and we'll see what he can provide going forward. Justin Burris, he's been on the field a little bit. I think only for like maybe 50 snaps. 18, not even 50 snaps. But he's been doing decent enough job. He's a guy who I like coming out a lot coming out of college, but I think he's a little bit too far age-wise to be developed at this point into like an amazing corner, because he's already 24 years old. If he was still 22, I would say that this is a guy you could see in the Jets' future. However, between the zone coverage being not the greatest and only being 24 and already not being on the field, I don't think that he has a huge shot at this point. Lorenzo Malden had an okay first few series until he got hurt, but we'll see what kind of role he can make for himself. Shamarko Thomas has been good on special teams, hasn't done a whole lot else. Corey Lemonnier we haven't seen a whole lot of, but he did have that sack last week. And Steve McClendon, a guy who's been a backup, but did force pressure on the only real snap that he played. I think he only has like 10 so far this year. Yeah, 10 snaps, and that's been mostly as a goal line guy. If we're on our goal line package, then he's in there. And then Daryl, some of these guys have played, but I haven't really seen them. Anzalone's a guy that I think we need to get on the field more, especially in nickel situations, and I'm going to try to get that going forward more because he only has 4 snaps so far this season. But I want to see him more in the place of Demario Davis in those nickel packages, just so we can kind of see what he has to offer, because I like his speed and I like his pass coverage ability. Even though it's only a 70 zone, it's still much better than most linebackers. So I want to see if we can develop this guy into somebody who can be a full-time guy down the line. He's still 22, and this is just his rookie season. He's ranked only a 69 at the middle linebacker spot, where he was higher when we signed him, but I think that's just his awareness and play rec kind of dragging him down. So that's the defense. I know that took a really long time to go over. Chandler Catanzaro, 7-9. Just not the accuracy is just not there, and I've said this. I don't think I've said this actually, but I'm used to the all Madden kicking speed, and these sliders are on all pro simulation, and I love the way this game plays on all pro simulation with these sliders so far. It can use a couple tweaks here and there in the patch. I don't know. I haven't played a game on the patch yet, but we'll see how the patch works out, because there's changes to the sliders for the patch, and I'm really loving this set of sliders in this playstyle right now. But that's part of it's me, part of it's just he doesn't have the greatest kick accuracy, and again, he's a kicker. He's probably not going to be a person in long-term plans. Lachlan Edwards has been, it looks like he's been good, but a couple things you got to keep in mind. We're punting from like the 20 a lot, and I'm actually punting it into the other end zone pretty much for touchbacks. So you can see he has 8 touchbacks on 12 punts. So he has 52 yards average, but he's only netting 33. And that partially is me, again, but it's also the accuracy is just not there with him. And again, we're going to be looking for replacements for these guys. They're just there because they're a kicker and a punter. That's pretty much it. Elijah McGuire's been pretty good in the kick return game, which is kind of surprising because I actually didn't realize he only has 88 speed. But he's been fine, and Jordan Todman's been really good. Not the greatest speed-wise, but they've been doing a solid enough job. And Safarian Jenkins got a kick return on a really high snap or something. And then Elijah McGuire's actually been averaging 24 yards per return on punts, but he also has that 50-yarder in there, so you got to keep that in mind as well. And that does it for the individual stats. I'm not going to do team stats in this video. I will save that for mid-season because I don't feel that 4 games is a good enough gauge of where our team is. It's generally it's showing what the idea of the team is, but I still feel it's too small of a sample size. It shows that we've had a rough offensive go of things and we've had a really good defense. So that's pretty much what we already knew, but from 4 games I'd like to get a little bit more of a gauge to judge things on. So we'll back out. Actually, I need to go back in there because I want to look at awards. I did not show you guys the weeks 2 through 4 AFC and NFC Defensive Players of the Week and Offensive Players of the Week. So obviously Jamal Adams, first week, 8 tackles, 2 interceptions, got the award. Here you can see Keenan Allen, 190 receiving yards and 3 touchdowns in week 2. Drew Brees had 351 yards and 5 passing touchdowns. Jake Ryan with 12 tackles, an interception, and a forced fumble. And then Mac, that performance came against us with 6 tackles, a sack, an interception, and a forced fumble. Very good all-around day for him. Aaron Rodgers, 364 yards, 5 passing touchdowns. Blake Bortles, and that I believe also came... No, that didn't come against us. That was the week we played the Dolphins. He had 301 passing yards, 4 touchdowns, and 18 yards on the ground. Whitney Merciless, 4 tackles, a sack, a forced fumble, and a fumble recovery touchdown, it looks like. And Aaron Donald racking up 3 sacks in week 3. Week 4, Dak Prescott getting 5 passing touchdowns. So it looks like passing touchdowns is what actually gets you the most points, because Dak Prescott didn't have the greatest game outside of that. Only 363 yards passing and 3 rushing touchdowns. Brandon Graham, 10 tackles for a loss, 2 sacks, and a forced fumble, continuing to be one of the brightest players in the NFL. Brandon Marshall, 12 tackles and an interception. And Le'Veon Bell, 23 carries for 184 rushing yards, averaging 8 yards a carry, and had 2 rushing touchdowns. So, great performance out of him. And let's take a look at where... I want to actually take a look at where everybody stands in the league. That is something I forgot to do. I haven't done one of these in a while, so you're going to have to work with me for a couple of these episodes. But passing yardage leader is Matt Ryan, and there's just your top. You can see like the top guys. Just pause if you want to see it, because I don't want to stay here forever. Aaron Rodgers, 15 touchdowns, only 1 interception so far. He is leading in that category. Interceptions, McCown has thrown the most in the league. Jared Goff not too far behind him, though. Brees has already thrown 6, so maybe showing a little bit of age. Not really. He's still completing 66% of his passes. Aaron Rodgers was 73% completion percentage. Brady 71. Palmer 71. Tyrod Taylor 71. Winston, Hoyer, and Bryce Petty. Those shouldn't really count. Kirk Cousins, Matt Ryan, Derek Carr. All right. Very strange group of guys. I actually want to look at one other thing too. I want to look at passer rating and yards per attempt. So Aaron Rodgers 127 passer rating. That is just insane. Winston's got 115. He's throwing the ball down the field. Palmer 113 and Matt Ryan 114. Paxton Lynch, he hasn't played a whole lot. Brady, Rivers, Wentz, Cousins, Wilson, Ben, Marcus Mariota, Derek Carr, and Deshaun Watson are your guys that are over 100 on the year. Yards per attempt, take a look at really quickly. And Brady, Matt Ryan, and Winston are all over 9. Tyrod, Palmer, Cam Newton, Marcus Mariota, Phillip Rivers, Ben Roethlisberger, Andy Dalton, Derek Carr, Aaron Rodgers, Carson Wentz, Simeon, and Blake Bortles are your guys that are over 8. Rushing wise, LaShawn McCoy leading league with 420 yards and 2 touchdowns. Le'Veon Bell 384 yards, but it looks like he's closing the gap pretty fast with performances like he just had. Doug Martin, Frank Gore, Theo Riddick, Gurley, Ajayi, and Thomas Rawls are all over 320 so far on the year. And then Charles Sims averaging 6.5 yards a carry. Marshawn Lynch averaging 6. Le'Veon Bell averaging 5.8. Anderson 5.3. Blunt 5.2. And LaShawn McCoy 5. See, is anybody else? Everybody else is under 5 a carry, though. Matt Forte is right there. Touchdowns, I believe this will be Blunt, C.J. Anderson, Ty Montgomery up there struggling to actually run the ball, but he scored a lot of touchdowns, so there's something to that. And these are the guys who have 4. Rushing average per game, McCoy getting 105 yards, Bell getting 96. That'll probably be over 100 by the end of the year. Doug Martin at 95, and Frank Gore at 90. Lynch, Riddick, Gurley, Ajayi, Rawls, all over 80 yards a game. And we'll go down to 75. That is your group as well. And it looks like Trubisky is having trouble holding on to the ball. DeMarco Murray surprisingly has 3 fumbles to start out the year. Frank Gore, Derrick Henry. Tennessee just can't hold on to the ball, it looks like. Jonathan Stewart, Melvin Gordon, Washington, Ezekiel Elliott, and Isaiah Crowell. See who's broken the most tackles. And Theo Riddick, actually, that is quite a surprise. And it looks like all these guys are speed guys more than anything. Jonathan Stewart's a power guy. Le'Veon Bell, kind of both. Darren Sproles, another speed guy. Not a lot of power guys up here. Lynch is up there, but not anywhere near the top. Yards after contact, Le'Veon Bell, not a surprise. And the longest run this year was a 90-yard run by Charles Sims, so very nice. Receiving-wise, Julio leads in total grabs, but we don't really look at that very much. I actually like to look at receiving yardage. And Keenan Allen's leading the league with 527 yards in just 4 games. Julio, Demaryius Thomas, Philly Brown is your top 5, along with Julian Edelman. Albert Wilson in the top 10. And so, hey, right there's our Darius Stewart, 7th in the league in receiving yardage so far this season. Very interesting. Jordy Nelson, Randall Cobb right behind him, and then Dez Bryant and Rob Gronkowski actually rounds out your top 10. I actually think that was 11. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, alright. So Rob Gronkowski still is 11th in the league as a tight end in receiving yardage, so that's interesting. Let's look at the average per game and scroll down because none of these guys at the top are going to be. Some running backs got up here. Zach Ertz is averaging 17.8. Decker's averaging 17.6. Britt's averaging 17.6. CP Flash 17.2. Demaryius Thomas 17.1. Keenan Allen, Jonathan Stewart, actually, Brashard Perriman, Michael Floyd, Sterling Shepard, Amari Cooper, Calvin Benjamin, Allen Robinson, DeAndre Hopkins, Jaron Brown, not John Brown, Virgil Green, Chris Godwin, Julio Jones, Antonio Brown, Philly Brown, and our Darius Stewart are over 15.5. Yards per game should pretty much be the same list. Yeah, this is the exact same list as total yardage. Nobody's really gotten injured yet, which is interesting. Keenan Allen, 5. Jordy Nelson, 5. And Rob Gronkowski and Michael Thomas, all tied for 5 touchdowns. Tied for 4, Julio, Dez, Randall Cobb, Chris Godwin, Marquise Lee, Golden Tate, Sterling Shepard, Devontae Adams, and Eli Rogers. And then tied for 3, you got Philly Brown, Albert Wilson, Darius Stewart, Jermaine Gresham, Will Fuller, Calvin Benjamin, Torrey Smith, Vance McDonald, DeAndre Hopkins, C.J. Anderson, Robert Woods. I know you got a lot of guys here, so I'll just scroll through them really quick so you can see. And look at this. Look at this production for Jermaine Gresham. 12 catches, 3 of them are touchdowns. Let's see what the longest passing play was this year. 82 yards to Eli Rogers. Very good. Blocking-wise, I just want to see who's given up the most sacks. Wow, Taylor Decker and Riley Rafe have both given up 9 sacks. That is interesting. Garrett Bowles given up 8. Trent Brown 7. Deion Dawkins 6. And a bunch of guys actually have given up 6 so far, so very strange to see. Defensively, Darren Lee is actually leading the league in tackles. We'll see if that keeps up for very long. Vontez Burfict, Eric Kendricks, C.J. Mosley, Jarrell Freeman. And a lot of these guys are very good players. Craig Robertson, a little surprising to see so high. And Emmanuel Lamar is too. Haven't heard that name in a while. Sacks, this isn't 100% accurate, but I just want to see who's kind of toward the top. So James Harrison leading the league in sacks. Very interesting. Aaron Donald, Ethan Westbrooks, Stephen Tuitt, and Charles Johnson. Myles Garrett, all over 5 so far this year, so very good. And 5 sacks in 4 games is no small feat. So we'll see if any of those guys can keep up their pace. We'll look at the interception leaders. Lawrence Timmons, Luke Kuechly, Brandon Marshall, Jamal Adams, all have tied for 3. So we'll see who wins that race, and probably somebody else is going to get their name in that, because I don't think there's any way a middle linebacker is going to lead the league in interceptions. So we'll see who else gets their name in that mix. Perry Riley, Shunk Gibson had 2 in 1 game. Josh Norman. Some of these are hard to really tell because it's so early in the season. Like if you get like a 2 or 3 interception game, then you're just going to be like leading this category. So there's that. And kicking, let's quick look at that. And then punting, we'll look at net yards. And Lachlan Edwards is last in the league in net yards. So there's that. Part of it's my fault, and part of it's just he's not the most accurate guy. Thomas Morstead, Cole Quitt, Jordan Berry, Marquette King. They're all these guys that are over 40. Here you go. Kick returning, Danny Woodhead averaging 49 yards a return, but he does have a 100-yard return for a touchdown. Has anybody had 2 kick return touchdowns yet? No, but here's everybody who's had 1. And we'll do the same for punting. And just 2. Odell Beckham with 1, though, so interesting. Alright, that does it for the entire NFL. This is running a little long. These tend to do so, so let's take a quick look at the standings and head on out of here. So the AFC East is where we will start. Actually, let's start in the AFC North. We'll just do them all in order. So the Steelers, undefeated record, 4-0. We'll see if they can keep that up. Ravens in second place at 2-2. Bengals and Browns, not the greatest situation for them, it looks like. AFC South, you got the Texans also undefeated at 4-0. Titans and Jaguars still in it, though. and the Titans actually have a negative point differential. Colts looking like they are missing Andrew Luck. AFC East, Dolphins and Patriots tied atop the division, as the Dolphins have been an up and down team, it looks like, so far. They still have a strange point differential, but it's actually a almost negative point differential for the Patriots too, so maybe just a rough start for the Patriots more than an up and down start for the Dolphins. Jets and Bills tied for 3rd place / 4th place, and they're just looking to be two of the worst teams, it looks like. The Raiders 4-0, a lot of undefeated teams. Every division leader that we've looked at so far is undefeated, but the Chargers creeping up on them, 3-1 right there, although they did lose their last game, so keep an eye on that. Broncos dropped 2 in a row, so did the Chiefs, and they are sitting at the bottom of the division. The Chiefs having an abysmal start to the year, giving up 119 points already in 4 games. That's an average of 30 points a game. Not something you expect out of that defense. In the NFC North, I think every AFC team had a 4-0 leader, and then the NFC North immediately just doesn't. Packers leading the division there, and it looks like their defense is letting them down a little bit because Rodgers is leading an amazing offense. But they lost their opener against the Seahawks and won 3 straight, so that might be part of it too. Lions sitting at 2-2, maybe a dark horse. Vikings 1-3, definitely underperforming expectations, and the Bears 0-4. I don't think anybody was really surprised by that one. NFC South, the Buccaneers 4-0 so far, and that kind of lead might be all you need in that division to clinch it, because that could be the smallest difference. Saints, Falcons both sitting at 2-2, Panthers sitting at 1-3. In the tightest division, this is actually a pretty close race. We'll see how it shapes up. Eagles and Cowboys tied atop at 3-1. It looks like they must have played a game though or something to make the Eagles the leader. I don't exactly know. Redskins sitting in 3rd place in a situation to watch. They still have not signed Kirk Cousins to a long-term deal, I don't believe. So Giants 1-3. Seahawks 3-1. 49ers 2-2. Cardinals 2-2, and the Rams 1-3. Probably going to be much of the same this year, though. I imagine the Seahawks will end up running away with this one. The 49ers are 2-2, but have a negative 34 point differential. Cardinals didn't even, and the Rams are actually over, but have a 1-3 record. And the Cardinals have dropped 2 in a row, so that's kind of interesting. And it looks like they're 0-2 at home. NFL-wise, if the season ended today, this is how the standings would shake up. And I actually said every AFC division had a 4-0 team, but the East did not. The leader was the Patriots and Dolphins. So this is how the draft order would look if the season ended today. And a lot of teams that you'd be surprised by. But at the bottom here, you got Bears, Chiefs, Broncos, Bills, Panthers, Colts, Browns, Jets, Bengals, Rams, Vikings, Giants, Falcons, Patriots, Redskins, Saints, Lions, Cardinals, Dolphins, Jaguars, and I believe that would be the cutoff point. But this isn't obviously 100% accurate because I didn't take into account like everything. So that is that. That is going to do it for this video. Week 4 recap. Next episode will be the game against the Cleveland Browns. That'll be episode, I believe, 8 of this series, because I believe this is episode 7. But that will do it for me. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Stay tuned for more Jets franchise in Madden 18.